welcome once again to another reaction video in the midst of all my interview videos. I had a flurry for a while there, so I'm getting back to these, getting myself caught up. Recently, I did Bleed by Meshuggah, and that got a lot of reaction, a lot of feedback, a lot of suggestions. Thank you, everybody, for giving me those and educate me a little bit on Meshuggah, a band that I feel in many ways I should know better than I do. And literally, that was the first song of theirs I'd listened to all the way through. Everything else I'd never heard might have been very brief clips. I'll admit I'm a clean vocals fan. The growled and screamed vocals, if they are 100% of the song, tend to back me off a little bit. So I didn't follow through on Meshuggah before, but I've read enough in reference about them to know that they are really one of the heavy hitters in prog metal, which is why I should know them better than I do. And certainly they have been very influential in developing the style within the genre known as djent, which typically I hear in a band like Periphery or Tesseract, and things like that, Animals as Leaders. Those are bands that I know, but they tend to be more melodic or instrumental, or cleaner in the vocals, probably a better way of putting it, and more melodic, let's be honest, than what I've heard of Meshuggah so far. So that's where my leanings tend to be, which is why I've gravitated to those bands and not Meshuggah. So, okay, let me continue to understand Meshuggah a little bit better and perhaps learn a little bit more of one of the influential bands in a genre that I honestly have to say is just about my favorite. So it only seems to make sense. So anyway, what we're doing today, this would be Dancers to a Discordant System. And that's not a bit of a mouthful, eh? That's a lot of words to throw in there. And we're going to do this right. I'm just going to put this together while we're watching. Yep, enjoy that with me. This is good video right here. There it is. You can see how it is. I'm not even going to edit this crap out. I'm just going to leave this in here. Why not? It's a 9.5 minute song, so it's not a short song. So you know what? You get to live with this warts and all production of value that I bring to this system. All right, so Meshuggah, Dancers to a Discordant System. I have the suggestion. I have to put that in the comments there because it didn't think ahead. Hey, who suggested this for me? We'll put that out there. All right, buckle up. I'm just going to start here because I know probably what's coming, but I like that. It's almost an atonal chord progression, very discordant. It makes sense. Very kind of, it's the word I'm looking for, disjointed, kind of all over the place, throws you off a little bit, but I like it. It's creative and it kind of fits in that prog category that I'm very used to. And I know about any moment now they're going to drop the anvil and it's just going to start pummeling me. But that's why I say it now. pause it there for a moment. I enjoying the composition of this at this point in time. The last song, Bleed, very much pretty much found a groove and just stayed in a similar tempo with a few flourishes here and there, maybe a little bit of changes. But this I'm enjoying in the sense that, one, vocal variety that I did not expect from him. Um, Still distorted vocals, really not clean vocals, which is fine, but there's more of a kind of a gritty, harsh whisper than to a scream. So I'd like him playing with those dynamics that way. That's pretty cool. Um, and again, I don't know what time signature that is. I'm not good at that stuff necessarily, but it's something crazy like 7/4 or something going on. So there's that unusual rhythm that I think they like to keep you off center a bit and off balance. And that's one of the ways they do that. This is like really rhythmically a very complex song. And that is very impressive. So this is that moment there where I start going, all right, I'm starting to make these connections between them and what I've been hearing, because this fits that a little bit more than the other thing, which fit more tool wise than would be the other bands I mentioned. Um, their typical lyrical content along the lines of very dark, dystopian, even, except the nails were fed, lies sharpened, to bleed us silent. Obviously, that is the kind of thing that speaks to the control of authority and the system, so to speak, lying to us and manipulating us in that way. So that's similar lyrical content to Bleed in some ways, although I can't remember all the lyrics to Bleed, but very dark. Let's put it that way. Very dark, and images of violence and blood and things like that. At least this is metaphorical blood, of course. But yeah, so far, and again, they've got that kind of dynamic that was very much popularized by a band like Nirvana, with the verses bit more sedate, a bit more relaxed. He's not screaming, but it's still distorted vocals, and a little more with the bass and a little less with the guitar, and therefore a little quieter. And then the chorus comes along and boom, now he's screaming. Now the guitars have been kicked up to 11, and it's a different song. I like that interplay. I like that dynamic. All right, let's continue here. I'm going to pause it here because I want to talk first and then listen to this instrumental section, this instrumental interlude that I believe is coming up. We'll see what happens. Definitely, yes, very Orwellian lyrics here going on, very dark stuff, and the whole idea that we are essentially controlled by being distracted and entertained and lied to by leaders and media and whoever. Uh, Not an uncommon thing that you hear people talk about in this day and age. So, really very much kind of pounding that home about how we are complicit in being controlled ourselves. That's my lyrical analysis. So I'm digging again. I really like the very complex rhythmic thing going on here, but it's interesting to listen to this when you think of a song with a band that's metal and pummeling away at you. But then if you tune into and listen to the drums, that primarily what is moving the song forward and creating most of the dynamic is the bass, the bass drums, which I'm going to presume and assume there are two of them, unless the guy's got an incredibly quick foot, which I suppose he could. And I've never seen him play, so I don't know. Um, but that's what's driving that. It's kind of all over. It's definitely not a dance beat. The most steady part of the drums would be the cymbal, although it varies here and there, and something like a snare that typically is very prominent in most rock bands and a lot of metal bands. It's barely being used. It's maybe once a measure, once or twice not even twice a measure, probably about once a measure. Again, I'm not counting and I'm not good enough to figure out what their time signature is. I don't think. Maybe I am. I don't know. I said something earlier. Somebody's going to correct me. But the snare is not being used much. The toms are not getting used much. It's mostly the drum, the bass, and the cymbal. And the cymbal, again, is very steady, but has variations throughout there, speeding up and slowing down at various times. And I just had the weird thought in some ways that like the use of cymbal primarily for the textures rhythmically ahead of a snare is something that in my mind I can connect back to Stuart Copeland of the Police. I know it's got to be a very long way from the Police to Meshuggah, from Stuart Copeland to Meshuggah's drummer, who I don't know the name because I've not researched. Um, but I'm curious if somewhere along the line that is part of the family tree, that thinking process wherein the cymbals being used a bit more, the hi-hat or whatever is being used more to rhythmically add texture as opposed to the more traditional route where the cymbal is maybe very steady and more background and it's the snare and the toms and the bass drums driving things. This is a whole different kind of approach to it, and it's one I've heard before, I know, but not necessarily in this context and not necessarily that I've really thought about till this exact moment. So somewhere along the line, I might try to figure it out later. But if somebody knows, if there's a way you can draw a straight or even not so straight line between Stuart Copeland of the Police and Meshuggah, let me know. That would be just fascinating. Anywho, all right, let's continue here. love that guitar solo. Love that guitar solo. I think this might be the one that somebody had pointed out in the comments that basically is so different. So much a contrast from the rest of the song, which is, again, kind of a groove metal sort of thing going on here, although a bit more complex than your average groove metal, or not. I don't know. Again, it seems to be very staccato, disjointed kind of groove that they've developed here, and then this very melodic, smooth, proggy guitar solo over top of it. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. That was great. I that's the kind of thing I like. I love contrasts. Absolutely love contrast. All right. So, learning more about Meshuggah as we go along the way here. And that is a song right there that I can hear the connective tissue between them and bands like Periphery and Tesseract. It becomes so much clearer at that particular moment when I hear something like that, which, I again, it's got kind of that groove that it sticks with, and there's not a huge change in tempo, but there's some change in dynamics and volume and texture and things like that that give the song a bit more variety than the last one. I like this one better than I like Bleed. God, I wish there was an instrumental version of it though, because the vocals just, ah, okay. It's more listenable than the other one, I think. But yeah, again, it's still rough for me to consider listening to an entire song of nothing but growls and harsh vocals. Maybe someday I'll get there. I'm not quite there yet, but an instrumental version of that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. And just for the guitar solo, that in and of itself it was a pretty amazing little contrast in the midst of all that pummeling, staccato, discordant riffs. Forgive me for using the actual word from the title of the song, but yeah, that's the part where I start to get more, and I can understand more of the reverence for Meshuggah among the more progressively oriented folks out there. It's a pretty cool tune. I dig that. So thank you to the person or people who made that suggestion. Yeah, you pointed me in the right direction there. So good job. Well done. Thank you. So, hey, if you like what I'm doing, if you enjoy it, do the things if you don't mind, the like and the subscribe and the bell. And that would be awesome. I'd appreciate that. Check out the other stuff I'm doing, including the interviews. That's my big thing there. The elites of the prog world, getting a little time to talk about what it is they're doing. I love doing that. If you get some chances, go over to Live 365 and find The Expanse, and you can listen to wall-to-wall progressive rock, wall-to-wall progressive metal all day, all the time. Fun stuff that I do. Check me out on the social medias if you get a chance, and Facebook and Instagram /threads and the artist that was formerly known as Twitter. It's out there. Just look up Bleeding Edge show, Bleeding Edge interviews. You'll find it. Just look for Proggy the Prog Bot, giving you the horns. And there you go. Thank you very much for checking this out and watching. Appreciate your time. This is Super Dave signing out.